And we're live with a special guest today. It's a little bit different here at Aragon Wine Market in Pensacola, Florida, but happy to be here. I'm Jessica, and we've got Dannon with us today. Charlotte's out, and so we're so excited to have a special guest host with us. Aragon Wine Market is our virtual wine tasting here in Pensacola, Florida. We've been doing it for about a year. And Dannon is with Tap the Coast.
Yeah.
She's one of our community partners here. And when Charlotte mentioned that she might not be available, we were thinking about people that we wanted to be on the show. And it was a no-brainer, somebody that we just love working with. But without further ado, I kind of just jumped right in there. Dannon has Tap the Coast, like I mentioned. Your initial concept was a 78 vintage camper.
Yeah.
That's totally renovated, that has a photo booth on the inside and taps on the outside that you can do kegs of wine on.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
so
my
it's a
gosh.
full service mobile bar and beverage company. We specialize in doing special private events, weddings, a lot of parties, a lot of business celebrations for grand openings for businesses here in town. We kind of cover the entire Florida Panhandle area, South Alabama. We're growing. Our team is expanding. We just launched in November 2019, and I say just launched because I don't think like 2020 really.
No, it
We
doesn't
should
count.
know about that, right?
It doesn't count.
So we launched in November 2019 and then hit the ground running in January of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
We
That's
had
amazing.
about 2 months to get off the ground.
Right.
And then COVID hit. And, in that early stage was where I had reached out to Charlotte because we needed a partner. Our business model is set up that way to where, we wanted to partner with a locally owned business. That was important to me. And Aragon just had such a great reputation in the community for just being, a great resource for all the wines. And so I had reached out to Charlotte and we had a conversation, and it's just been a great partnership since day one. So I'm excited to be here. I have some big shoes to fill tonight. I know.
I do as well. I was literally a little bit nervous when we got started and mentioned it to Dannon, just because obviously Charlotte's just such a wealth of knowledge and has so much background in wine.
Well, that's why I'm so grateful to have that partnership with you guys. It's a great, way for me to connect people, my clients who are trusting us to be, of service to some of their greatest life milestones, like their weddings and their, parties and things like that. And I get to bring them to you. You are the expert here. You guys have such a great selection of all the wines and everything else that you sell here. And so it just...
Well, and, mobile beverage company really kind of encompasses really what it is, in the sense of it's not just the camper. There's so many other, you've grown exponentially, and you really have now with the renovated horse trailer that you have. A couple of other, my favorite is the Italian, the Piaggio, is the cutest little cart that has taps on it, that you can do beer, and then certainly wines. Either, there are some keg wines available that we, a huge portfolio actually of them that we can accommodate, and then wines by the bottle, and then wines in a can as well. So there's some different canned options that we have.
There are some really neat new things that are like just coming to the market. That's what I love, is introducing clients to that. Like, you don't have to just serve your wine in a glass, or like it can come in a can, and that's totally cool.
Especially from a wine, wine on the beach.
Yes.
Lots of, well, hopefully we'll get back to a place of lots of people, but where usually people aren't comfortable with glass, having that option is great.
There are a lot of venues that don't allow glass anymore.
Absolutely.
And so it's a great option to consider. Can I give a shameless plug for Tap the Coast? If you want to see all of the bars that we have a variety for small events, large events, ones that do require a bartender, some that don't. And you can see all of that. Either follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or go to our website, tapthecoast.com.
Yeah, I know Charlotte every week mentions, Jessica does special events and does events here at Aragon, and certainly love to host those private wine tastings and different little events that we've got available here at Aragon. But what kind of brought us together was my background in event design, and that's really, I think, where we had a connection.
That's where you and I first met.
Yeah, that's where we first met. So I love having the opportunity to take like my passion for events and design, and now match it with wine and pair menus and food and understand, where the wine came from and what from the soil is going to make it, more, have more mineral palate, standpoint and more approachable for oysters or all of those different things that now that I'm learning, that goes into events. There's so much. It's exciting.
But I remember the first project that you and I got to work on was actually here at Aragon. It's one of my favorite shoots that we've done ever. And it just was so beautiful. You put your style and your design into it. And then you introduced me to this beautiful back courtyard here at Aragon.
That's right.
If you haven't been down here, you need to come in and check out the courtyard. Today was like the perfect day to
my
sit out
goodness.
there.
Absolutely.
It was
Perfect
beautiful
day.
here in Pensacola. And so springtime is here, but it just felt like that day.
Yeah, springtime is
About a year
definitely
ago.
here, and we're excited about it. Aragon, today is a tale of two Pinots, battle of the Pinots. Super excited to really approach that, and we're going to get to that in just a few minutes. We have a wonderful guest with us from Dreyfus Ashby. That's the importer for these wines, Natasha. She's been with us before. But before we move on, I think that we have a video that we wanted to share from a style shoot, just to kind of paint a better picture of when we say we do events, what that means and what some of the options that Tap the Coast has available when you partner with Aragon Wine Market and Tap the Coast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's check that video out. Rolling. I think. I don't see it on.
Hi, I'm Perla and I work for Ace and Cake Photography. We just got done shooting a Frida Kahlo shoot. All the vendors that were a part of it made this vision reality. Coming from a Hispanic background, I always tend to gravitate towards my culture, and I did want to add a little bit of that to the style shoot. My name is Jessica Jensen. I am the creative designer and owner of My Right Hand Events. Perla came to me middle of the summer with Ace and Kate and said, I have an idea for a style shoot. Have you ever heard of Frida Kahlo? And I said, oh my gosh, of course. We knew that by my, kind of excitement of Frida's story and Perla's interest in and having it be the concept of the shoot that we were going to have fun playing with it.
Hi, I'm Jillian Jensen Holt. I do hair and makeup, and I also do wedding flowers with Fleur Zoe Florals. For this shoot, I was really excited to collaborate with my sister and do a really multicolored, very unique shoot so that we could show something different than your standard wedding. It's nice to see all of the colors kind of come together and make something really beautiful.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Seeger, creator at the Clay Culture Jewelry Business. Jessica reached out to me to create some earrings for this Frida Kahlo shoot, and she wanted something bright and fun and floral, and it was so much fun to create. I'm so excited to see how they're used in the shoot, and I'm so excited to be working with everybody here.
I'm Dannon Hooks. I'm owner and founder of Tap the Coast Mobile Bar and Beverage Company. We're here today as part of the styled shoot to host a margarita cart and also a Mexican coffee cart and soda cart. We have one of our signature bars, the Piaggio, here today, where they're hosting their alcoholic beverages, and then separately from that, our bar cart, where they have non-alcoholic beverages, including a coffee setup and sodas.
Well, that's cool.
That was such a fun day.
That was a fun day.
Loved it.
Well, without further ado, I definitely want to get to the wines. We just wanted to take an opportunity to kind of paint a picture of what events are possible, not only in the community, but here at Aragon Wine Market. We have today with us from Dreyfus Ashby, which is an importer, Natasha, who, like I said, has been with us before when we featured Sula, which was an amazing vineyard in India. And I'm going to go ahead and put her in. Natasha, welcome back.
Hi, friends.
Hello. It's so good to see you.
And you. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. We mentioned earlier we've got a new face with us tonight since Charlotte's out. This is Dannon, but we definitely are excited to learn about, these two very different Pinot Noirs in this, virtual battle of the Pinots. I know you wanted to go ahead and have everybody start with pouring both wines, so I'm going to let you hop right in and take.
I would. Yeah, if that's cool. And there were a couple of questions, the same thing, like which are we tasting first?
Yeah.
Since we're doing a versus, if everyone is open and up to it, I was going to suggest you go ahead and pour the two wines side by side. We will taste the New World before we taste the Old World. So we'll go a little more fruit forward before we go a little bit more rich and deep tannin and structure. So that would mean that your Cloudline Pinot Noir, the 2019 vintage is I believe what you are offering, would go on your left-hand side, and then your Laforêt Pinot Noir 2018 would go on your right-hand side. So whenever you're doing a sit-down tasting, you'll always taste from your left to your right. So that's why I asked you to position those wines in that order. So I'm going to give everybody a couple of minutes to get their setup together since that may have just thrown a curveball into everyone's plan. They have to grab another glass, go ahead and make sure the other one's open, and so on. So I'll give you just a couple of minutes there to get yourself sorted. The last time we met, I was pouring for you, or you were pouring for yourself, and we were chatting about Sula wines from India, which was a really fun and interesting tasting. Sula is still the only wine exported out of India. So if you were part of that tasting, welcome back. If this is your first time tasting with me, I'm a wine industry veteran. I've been in the business for a while, a long time, almost 15 years or right around that 15-year mark. I worked for a South African importer, and then I've now worked for Dreyfus Ashby for the last 3 years, and almost 4 actually. And so Dreyfus is a company that's actually owned by the Drouhin family. So while we have a very diverse portfolio tasting from India, we also represent Ulysses, which is out of Napa. It's a sister property to Dominus. We have properties in the Côte de Rhône. Or in the Rhone Valley. We have properties in Argentina that we represent. So, but what we're going to taste today is strictly Pinot Noir, and the family that I work for that owns Dreyfus Ashby produced both wines.
Right.
So while I want you to taste New World to Old World, so we're going to go Cloudline to Laforêt Pinot, the story actually starts in Burgundy. It starts with the Old World wine. So to know a little bit about the wine is to understand where it came from, of course. So I'm going to take you all the way back to 1880 when this family, the domain was founded. So Maison Joseph Drouhin was founded by Joseph Drouhin in the year 1880. So, we've got quite a long history of winemaking. Same family owns and operates this property or this domain in Burgundy. And they also have property in Oregon. So that brings us to our Cloudline representation here. But to give you just a little bit more information, family owned. It's owned and operated by the 4 siblings. So now the 4th generation of Drouhin operates Maison Joseph Drouhin in Burgundy, and as well as Domaine Drouhin Oregon, which they founded over 30 years ago in Oregon, the first family from Burgundy to set down and make Oregon a homestead for them and to produce world-class Pinot Noir alongside some of the founding fathers in Oregon, like David at Irie Vineyard, and so on. So the family has property that they own in Burgundy, predominantly in the Chablis growing region. And for those of you who are novices to Burgundy, I want to just help demystify it for you. So Burgundy, predominantly, when you see a Burgundian bottle, it's going to have the slender shoulders. Do you all by chance have the Laforêt Pinot bottle handy that you could show? Awesome. So you'll see the slender shoulders as opposed to the masculine high shoulders, which is representative of Bordeaux style wine. So your big reds, Cabernet Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Malbecs, so on. So everything will always come in a slender shouldered bottle, and you're only going to see obviously white. Okay, 9 times out of 10, if it's a white wine, it's going to be Chardonnay, and 9 times out of 10, if it's a red wine, it's going to be Pinot Noir. What confuses us here in the U.S. is that it will say things like Gevrey Chambertin. It'll say things like Chambolle Musigny. It'll say things like Chablis. So what they're telling you in the bottle is the location. And that's when it becomes confusing for us as domestic drinkers who maybe are not exposed to Burgundy. But to demystify it, you are drinking Pinot Noir and you are drinking Chardonnay. Only if it says Beaujolais does it throw you for a little bit of a loop. So now you're drinking Gamay, but those bottles are fewer and farther between than your run-of-the-mill average, like a Pinot Noir. And I shouldn't even use the words run-of-the-mill or average with Burgundy because wines are so illustrious and so world-renowned for their pedigree and their history and so on. So that gives you a little bit of information. Pinot Noir, the birthplace of Pinot Noir is in Burgundy. So we're drinking a grape that is historically from the region, having been transplanted and brought into the United States and found a home that was very suiting for it in the Willamette Valley. So everyone should be probably poured up at this point. So we're going to start with the Cloudline Pinot. 2019 vintage on the Cloudline, which is current and the most current vintage here in the United States for this wine. I poured both of my wines into what are, traditional Oregon Pinot Noir glasses. The difference between the two is that the one in this hand here is a tighter, smaller lip. It's smaller toward in the circumference. The larger is more of an old world size. So new world, old world. And that's why I chose the glassware that I did. Cloudline Pinot. This is the 19th vintage of Cloudline Pinot Noir for us. And again, the Drouhin family is part of the production team. Veronique winemaker, is the consulting winemaker for the Cloudline wines. So, in fact, we have them both. Why don't we just go through a quick sensory evaluation on the two wines side by side? So what I'm going to ask you to do is to just give your wine a nice swirl for those of you at home that I cannot see. And once you've done that, you're going to put your nose in your New World glass, your Cloudline, which is in your hand. And then you're going to do the same thing again and put your nose in the right side. Nice big inhale.
Totally different.
The differences between the two, then the similarities between the two. The only there are differences, clearly there are different vintages, because I believe you sold the Laforêt Pinot Noir, which is the 2018 vintage. The 19s the 19 reds typically arrive into the United States in October. So they're going to be on the water in the next several months. So you should see here two distinctions between the two for me is more of a fruit-driven nose on the Cloudline. You might get bright cherry, cranberry notes. And then on the Laforêt, it's a little bit more depth of fruit there. I feel like darker fruit, maybe even some spiced tannins.
I was going to say some spice, some pepper.
So let's go on to the next. Let's go ahead and give a swirl and have a sip.
I mean, this is just, when I think of Pinot Noir, this hits every checkbox for me as far as approachable, very, easy drinking, but still has enough, it's dynamic enough that it's not flat. I don't know. It just everything, every bit of the fruit forward and kind of fruit notes that you mentioned on the nose. It's just really delicious on the back of the palate there.
Mm-hmm.
Very delicious.
So Veronique Drouhin. So she's what, the great granddaughter of the initial one?
Yeah, the great granddaughter of Joseph Drouhin. Great granddaughter of Joseph Drouhin.
Wonderful.
So she, alongside her three siblings, three brothers, they own Dreyfus, but they also own and manage both Maison Joseph Drouhin as well as Drouhin, Oregon. And the newest acquisition, which was purchased in 2013, is the Rose Rock Vineyard. The Domaine Drouhin, Oregon property is in Dundee Hills. That's an appellation or sub-appellation of the Willamette Valley. The Rose Rock Vineyard is in Eola Amity. Did I say that before? I said Dundee Hills with Domaine Drouhin, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So Eola Amity is the location for the Rose Rock Vineyard, which was purchased in 2013. And 25% of the fruit in your Cloudline glass is coming from that Rose Rock Vineyard.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely has a nice texture.
I agree. Like you said, that's a little hint of like the spice to it.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is really, really delicious, and I love that we have it. It's very approachable from a price point standpoint. To me, it's, we have it priced in the store at $20 a bottle for an Oregon Pinot, especially from a smaller production of this standpoint. Or I love having something like that at a $20 price point to be able to share with people. Oftentimes they're certainly a bit more expensive when you're looking at Willamette Valley, but most of the time people come in and are pretty specific. If they've had a Willamette Valley Pinot Noir, they usually
have a producer that they like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that as a great introduction to Pinot Noir, this is these price points, you can't get more approachable than this for something that is of true quality, that's owned by a family with lineage. But picking both the Cloudline Pinot Noir and the Laforêt Pinot Noir was a smart play. They're incredibly approachable on price point, and they are also high quality. So you've done a great service to your clientele in terms of like providing them two quality Pinot Noirs, exceptional quality, without asking them to buy Oregon Pinot or Burgundy that is, $40 or $50 a bottle or more in some cases. So this was a great play on the Cloudline and the Laforêt in terms of price and quality.
I'm interested to see some of the comments, like for the folks at home that are tuning in and
absolutely,
sipping with us, like what
you can ask questions. I can see alongside, and we can happily answer if anyone has any questions for sure.
Definitely, Pam and Bill, we're happy that you guys are joining us, and glad you're trying. Like we mentioned, we're trying the Cloudline and the Laforêt side by side. Try and approach them and absorb the differences, kind of at the same time. I think when I first started drinking Pinot Noir, there was a concept to me. It was something about obviously latitude, longitude, and the weathered patterns in Portland, not Portland, but in Oregon, and with the precipitation and just the mountain peaks and then the valleys and kind of the depth with the Cloudline, much like the name of the wine, and how it affects the, maybe what I think the question I'm trying to ask was that some of the reasoning why Oregon was initially an interesting location to bring wine to. I always just thought that was just something because I was smart.
I know. I was like, your question is literally.
Yeah. The Oregon parallel.
They have similar weather patterns. That's got to be why, but I don't know that that's accurate.
Because really, truly, and other than that, and then being on the same parallel, it's the similarities really stop there. Soil composition is not the same in Burgundy. So just to bring everybody forward to what we're talking about, the Oregon story, I'll take a step a little bit back further too. California was well established or becoming very well established at this time. Tasting rooms are opening. The Gallos, the Mondavis, they're really leading the way as the pioneers there. And then of course states like Good Luck Bunchu, who have been there forever. So Oregon or Napa Valley and California in general started to become relatively crowded. And you had this rebellious group that wanted to go off and do their own thing. And so they went north and started their own
I like that story.
community.
Way better.
And yeah, and they really they based their entire existence on cohabitating together and sharing stories as fledgling farmers looking to produce agricultural crops such as grapes to ultimately produce and vinify into wine. And so you have this sort of core group that started and worked very closely together. As I mentioned, David Lett before at Irie Vineyard, he's considered Papa Pinot in Oregon. He planted the very first Pinot Noir vines. And it was he that said to Robert Drouhin, Veronique's father, there's a beautiful property that is opened up. It's a stone's throw from me. It is, a Christmas tree farm at the moment, but you should come and see the property. And so he did, and decided that Veronique was, in her early 20s, just finishing up school, and said, we're going to purchase wine in Oregon. And that's where you're going to make wine. You should be studying to be a winemaker. And so she's made over 30 vintages in Oregon and over 30 vintages in Burgundy, and is the guardian of that Drouhin style. So she is, sort of the ambassador to all of that, making sure that there's consistency and elegance and that finesse that you would look for in all wines produced by their family.
That's really incredible.
Yeah.
The Drouhins were the first family from Burgundy to come from, the birthplace of Oregon, to come over and produce wines in Oregon alongside our American pioneers who were doing that in Burgundy. So it was quite they were welcomed with open arms. They're still lifelong friends with many of those families. And it was really a testament to the quality and what these early pioneers coming up from California had discovered in Oregon. And it sits on the same parallel as Burgundy. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at a map and you trace it around from Willamette Valley, you will find yourself all the way in Burgundy. So it's a remarkable sort of geographical phenomena, if you will. And then because nothing else is truly very similar. There is similarities in the weather patterns, but not really when you think about, Burgundy's been hit by a lot of frost and things that have happened. There have been some things that have inhibited them vintage by vintage, and Oregon hasn't had that per se. And then the soil composition is definitely different. There's more volcanic soil in Burgundy, in Oregon, and more limestone and shale and things in Burgundy. So it's different soil composition, the same varietal. The varietal of Pinot Noir in and of itself is a finicky, delicate. It's considered the poet's grape. It can be, run hot and cold. You have to really baby it. Unlike something like Cabernet Sauvignon that is robust and just thrives and grows and it's hardy and it gives you everything you want and it can be planted almost anywhere. Pinot is only grown in certain places in the world, and that's because of the finesse that you get and the delicacy of the varietal. It's the most thin-skinned red grape varietal. So if you're ever going to do a long tasting at home and you're going to taste a bunch of different things and they're all in red wines, put Pinot at the beginning of your tasting and end with your Cabernet Sauvignon. And then in between there, and lots of other things, of course.
Definitely. So some of the tech points of the Cloudline, can you speak to some of that, sitting on oak? Is it?
Yeah. So Cloudline Pinot sees a partial amount of oak fermentation, and Veronique never really reveals the exact balance of her oak versus stainless steel. But put together, the harmony and the oxygen that's created when you do a little bit of stainless steel and a little bit of French oak, and it's never first fill. It's always second or third fill on the oak barrels, meaning that the newer the oak, the more oak influence you get. So it's never newer oak. They like for the fruit and the fruit varietal, and as well as the terroir to really show through, as Burgundian winemakers are known for. It's a beautiful harmony, and in fact, Laforêt is made in that very similar same type of way. So.
Awesome. I think that we maybe should taste the other one now. We kind of honed in
Right.
on the first one, and then I went on
Yeah.
a tangent and took the conversation somewhere else. But
That's okay.
I love the story though of this, and you know how it's all. You have the lineage of the two different locations, but then you also have the lineage of the family that's involved and behind this
Yeah.
for so long.
that's really been beautiful, is the families and stories behind the wine, and really the number of multi-generational vineyards that really still exist, and in a lot of
Yeah.
places is truly incredible.
So important.
It's so important.
Yeah. It's protecting that legacy, vintage after vintage and generation after generation is at the hallmark for a lot of the families that do this.
A word that has come up to us consistently over the last year is sustainability, and I think that also applies to it from a winemaker standpoint of consistency and making sure, just like you're speaking, just like you were saying, being true to the brand and the consistency of how the wine is being made, having that multiple generations overseeing it's incredible.
Can you imagine having that responsibility of being the person who is the protector of?
That's right.
Style of wine. I know it. A lot on her shoulders. Her brothers all hold different posts within the companies and overseeing. Her older brother Philippe is the viticulturalist, so he looks after the vines in both Burgundy as well as in Oregon. Her youngest brother is the president of the company, so of Dreyfus, who I work for, as well as both Domaine Drouhin, Oregon, as well as Maison Joseph Drouhin. And then her brother Laurent is the only one that lives here in the United States, and I get to work alongside him quite often. He basically is the ambassador to the wines in the United States, all of North America, and the Caribbean.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Not a bad gig, but he's raising his family here, so he's the only one that actually lives in the United States.
Yes, we had him on with us probably about a year ago now, maybe a little bit less, on one of the virtual tastings, and I adored him. He called Charlotte. It was Charlotte, and I just wanted to listen to him speak the entire time.
No.
It was beautiful.
I feel the same way every time. Any of the four of them, I love it. Their accents are so beautiful and graceful, and Veronique especially. She just embodies grace and style, and I feel like that is a reflection in the wines.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So there is definitely grace and some beautiful depth to this. So why don't we move on? So everybody, we're trying now.
So we put this on the nose once already. We got those lovely peppery notes. See if you still pull that from it. Now a deeper fruit as opposed to more of that fruit forward style where it's lots of fruit, fresh and it's bright. There's a little more depth and structure to this than the Cloudline. And I like to tell everybody this as you taste, anytime I'm tasting with a group. Your second sip will always be your truest. The first one, you're really just rinsing away whatever was there before. So always give it that second taste if you're doing like a proper tasting and you want to get tasting notes to be able to talk about. The second taste is always a little bit more intuitive than the first because it's really, the first is a cleanser. But I think those peppery notes hold true. There's definitely some deep tannin structure and some pepper notes that follow through on the wine. Both wines, they're not built to be a cellared wine. They're, drink within the 3 to 5 years of the vintage is recommended for both of these wines. As you can see on the Laforêt, we also encapsulate that in Stelvin enclosure. So it's easy for, picnics and to take to the beach, and it's got a twist of the Stelvin. Yeah. And the Cloudline is under cork, but this one is under Stelvin enclosure. And the reason truly is because I have a lot of accounts and restaurateurs that country clubs that like to pour this banquet and catering for weddings and whatnot. So it's easier to have it under Stelvin, which is why we made the change on the Laforêt line. There is a Chardonnay to match this wine. And this was the first vintage 2020 that we produced a rosé to go alongside the Cloudline. We made a small batch of it because it was the first. And so we didn't offer it in Florida. If it goes well in the states that we did select, when we did the 2 other states, then we'll likely get some in next vintages of the Pinot Noir.
Yeah, we're all about the
we
rosé.
hope that goes well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this bottle with a girlfriend the other night at my house. I was doing a little show prep and opened
Research
a
and
bottle.
development. She took some bottles home. and-
Yep. So
Yes.
I had come in earlier in the week to buy my bottles, brought them home, and I
Some
got
research.
to speak. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
For sure.
So we can speak to that. I mean, I think the, obviously a number of foods go with Pinot Noir. The beautiful.
Let's talk
thing
about that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the palatable, what pairs with it. The palatable things about Cloudline that I loved is I feel like it was light enough to pair with oven roasted turkey, but then I could also see it with like a heavier tenderloin, a heavier protein that was more robust. It had a lot of versatility in that. And then I didn't necessarily have to have it with anything, that it could just be consumed, by itself or, before you're, as a glass of wine before you go meet up for dinner sort of thing.
Absolutely. Great aperitif wine.
Absolutely.
Pinot Noir is so versatile. I always think of Pinot Noir. I love to eat salmon, especially I cook a lot of salmon or trout at home.
Mhm.
Pinot Noir, one of my favorite pairings for that. Specifically for the Laforêt, I feel like it's wonderful even with like a charcuterie board because it has some of those spicier notes. So like the ummis and the meats and the cheeses, awesome with that. I wouldn't love it as much with the Cloudline because it's a little bit more fruit driven.
Right.
But I wouldn't be shy to pair the Cloudline with a pork dish, maybe even something off the grill that has a little bit of smoky notes.
Mhm.
Both of them actually for that. So far and wide, Pinot Noir is for me, and I feel like this is a good, like for even restaurateurs and if you're dining out, like Pinot is a crowd pleaser. So if you're going to sit down at a table with the group and you need to order a bottle of wine and someone's tasked you with that, pick a Pinot. It'll pair up with just about everything anyone at the table has ordered. It is a very, very versatile varietal in terms of food pairings. I mean, I feel like Pinot and popcorn even works.
Yeah,
I mean, I
absolutely.
would do that.
Yeah.
On popcorn sounds good.
Yeah.
I
So
think that-
Pinot is a good pairing wine.
Yeah, it definitely is. And as you mentioned, the Stelvin enclosure and it being something that, restaurateurs and will gravitate, especially for weddings and events, it's definitely something I think from a catering standpoint on our end is perfect. That's right, Pinot and popcorn. We're gonna keep that hashtag. I think we're always brainstorming and talking about what wines would be great for different events that come with Tap the Coast here to Aragon Wine Market, and finding things that are approachable that you can appease the masses. I always suggest for clients, especially from a catering standpoint, if you're gonna have a limited bar, perhaps do 2 white options and 2 red options, depending on what your setup is. That way you're giving a little bit of a variety, but certainly not too terribly much, because if you got everything that everyone liked, you would have a full open bar. And so that's different. So in an attempt to limit it, providing that, and to me, I think that a Pinot is a no-brainer, that you should absolutely have a Pinot Noir and then perhaps the Cabernet Sauvignon or something heavier available for your attendees.
I agree with you.
I love about this, the Laforêt is, those spice notes do give that depth to it and make it feel heavier, I think, than it is. It's certainly, from a palate standpoint, is completely different to me than the Cloudline.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to me, and I tend to lean more towards white wines than I do reds, but this is, as you said, like, it is a crowd pleaser for people who even are more leaning towards the whites than the reds. This is something that I
It's really
really
approachable.
I enjoyed this. I mean,
I would say, and especially to jump back to the Cloudline, it is definitely an introductory Pinot Noir for someone that may have not had Pinot Noir before, or interested in branching out beyond the one Merlot that they had tried or something, the one limited wine. But I certainly would say for people that are more versed and not novices like some of us, it's definitely a solid bottle to take home for $20 a week, the Cloudline, and then even the Laforêt at 21 is what we have it priced at in the store. 9 times out of 10, our customers are looking for an approachable, unique, and affordable wine that they can consume regularly. Certainly still have
These
those
are
high-end
easy.
bottles.
These are easily
Yeah.
your own house by the glass. if you're going to come home and just open something and you want to just make it quick and easy, and you obviously you've tasted it, you open, this is easy to open any day of the week. Whether you want a little more structure, so you go with the Pinot Noir from the Laforêt and you have that Stelvin enclosure, or you go back over to the Cloudline because you want something a little bit more fruit driven. I think the way you go, there are exceptional wines. If you're invited to a gathering and you have no idea what the host is preparing, great wines to bring over, easily opened at a picnic setting, on a dock, on a boat. With that Stelvin enclosure on the Laforêt. I think that in terms of like, if you're going to pair up at home, you know that a domestic Pinot Noir is going to have a bit more fruit forward style, and one that is from France is going to have, or from Burgundy specifically, is going to have a little bit more depth of character. I was going to say the price points again that you picked are so easy and approachable. And let's be honest, Pinot Noir is not inexpensive.
No.
Find quality Pinot Noir that you can purchase by 6 bottles or a case is hard to come by. So these are great. You guys were very smart in picking your Pinots to expose them in this way to your clientele, because they're really good bottles for the price point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love, Jennifer, thanks. We love the idea of Pinot and popcorn as well. As you guys know, we're here at Aragon Wine Market in Pensacola, Florida. If you have any questions, we are trying 2 beautiful Pinot Noirs. One is Cloudline and the other is the Laforêt from Joseph Drouhin. Both, but the same, would you say both the same vintner? Is that how you would say with?
Yeah, yes. They are produced by the same family. So the same vintner. The differentiation is one is from Burgundy and one is from Oregon. And then in this instance specifically, we have 2 different vintages, but they're a vintage apart.
Yeah, absolutely. We spoke to some of the tech aspects on the Cloudline, but the Laforêt sits on stainless steel and not new oak, but as well. So very similar processing standpoints. What are some of the differences from a production standpoint, maybe the soil or something else that stands out?
Yeah, so soil content is going to be different. More volcanic soils will be found in the Willamette Valley. They are both sourced similarly. They are both sourced from multiple locations. So in the Laforêt, it's going to come from multiple villages. So we're going to, but all from, and majority from the Côte de Beaune. The Pinot Noir from Willamette will come from multi-appellation, but 25% of it comes directly from the Drouhin vintage. So you have 25% of this wine is estate grown, which is important. That means that the Drouhins are handling their own wine production, their own grape, their own agriculture from start to finish. They maintain the vineyards. They know the pesticide or herbicide routine. They know exactly what's going on in their vineyard on the daily. So that's important as well. So those would be some of the, the nuances that are different about them in terms of, just production wise. And then, of course, the obvious, that one is from coming from Burgundy, and the other is coming
obviously
here. Yeah.
And was that intentional? I mean, what did the family decide that they want? That they had, the vineyards over in Burgundy, and then they wanted to try something completely different. Was that intentional?
Well, I think
so. David let so that when they were coming over to the United States, they were visiting in California and hanging out with the Mondavis, because everybody was in that era, right? Like it was a big party going on over there.
I bet.
They came to check it out, and of course they went north into Willamette, and Robert had met with David Lett back in in the early. I think actually his first trip was actually in the 60s. So the 60s, the 70s. He's meeting with David Lett. He said, "Hey, would you ever think of buying land here in Oregon?" And Robert said, "Never say never. If the right property came for sale, I would take a look at it." And so when David called him very purposely, he was picking his neighbors. Let's be honest. He was like, "If I'm going to pick anybody, it's going to be them." And what a seal of not to say it's a seal of approval, but a family with such a legacy in Burgundy.
Absolutely.
Put down roots in the United States and say, we're going to make Pinot alongside these Americans. I mean, that was really something, I think, to say that. And then to have, the competitions that came up later on after that, where Oregon Pinot Noir scored right alongside Burgundy, that was really something.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and that was an Irie Vineyard wine as well.
Wow. Awesome. Well, gosh, Natasha, we're at about 45 minutes, and this has been so awesome to have you join us again and compare this. I think we've gotten some good feedback in our comments from our customers of just loving the comparison to the two. And so this has really helped me tasting them side by side. So I'm glad you decided to do it that way, or suggested that we do it that way, because it was awesome to have them right next to each other and really immediately be able to, from a sensory perception, smell the difference and then taste it, because it was immediate, fruit, cherry versus, more dynamic and more spicy and totally different palatable approach. So thank you so much again for joining us.
Pleasure.
And hopefully we'll get to come to Pensacola or to Florida soon.
I'm hoping to get on the road. October is kind of my in my mind target, but I think I hope it's sooner than that.
Yeah.
But at least by October, I can start to move about the state and
Awesome. Well, get us on your Rolodex for the fall, and
I would love that.
In the shop. Absolutely.
I would love that.
Have a great day.
Thank you so much, ladies. Everyone, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
She was awesome.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I learned so much.
Such a great amount of information. And it was fun trying them side by side, just because, to have that opportunity to try, to smell the difference,
Absolutely.
to taste the difference. It really helps you kind of absorb how different they are.
That's right. I mean, I'm truly interested to hear like some of the ladies that are, or I say ladies, I should say some of the folks that are watching, like what are I'm sure they picked up on the same things that you and I did. All of us have, but
yeah. What were some of the differences that you guys tried?
Did you prefer one or the other? Which one is your favorite? And which one are you coming back for?
Well, we've got a few more minutes, so we want to keep those comments coming in, those questions coming in as you continue to absorb and enjoy these beautiful wines. We've got a couple more things to talk about, which is what we're doing next week and a few fun things going on in the shop. So next week, we're going to be moving through some more reds, featuring Master. Charles Master was on with us about a year ago as well for our virtual wine tasting, but we're going to be seeing, last time we visited the Mont Privé wines, and this time we're going to go to Tortoise Creek, which is they've got the Lodi Cabernet Sauvignon and then the Zinfandel available, and that's what we're going to be featuring next week. Okay. So 2 amazing wines. They're line priced at a really approachable price at $13 a bottle each.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it's a no-brainer to try 2 different things. So the Zinfandel and the Cabernet Sauvignon will be a nice difference to what we've done the last couple of weeks with some other varying Pinot Noirs and lighter wines, I would say. But then we'll also be having some new product, which I'm excited. Dannon, part of what Tap the Coast is also moving into some retail.
Right. Yeah.
And we're excited to be featuring these little craft cocktail kits that come in a jar. Look at how amazing that is with all the dried.
Yeah. They have all of your dried fruits, all of your vegan sugars, all of the ingredients to infuse your spirits at home to make at-home cocktails this is a no-brainer.
And they're made in Jackson. I was like, I'm sorry, I got lost in the label. They're made in Jacksonville. So they're made right here in Florida, which I think is awesome. And one of the things I wanted to say before I let this broadcast end, female wine shop here at Aragon Wine Market. Amazing. Tap the Coast. Female entrepreneur over here.
And Camp
is also female. And then our wines this evening were.
Do you know that March is Women's Empowerment Month?
I did.
Tying it all together.
That's what my tie-in was you go girls. But these are going to be available here at Aragon Wine Market through Tap the Coast. We've got 4 different flavors. I know, sangria.
I'm trying to show them. This is a brunch punch. It has cherries, oranges, pineapple, citrus infused sugars. I mean, everything that you need to infuse spirits at home. You can infuse these with whichever you choose, and then each jar will make 8 to 16 cocktails. So
awesome.
They're really delicious.
Yeah, I was reading all the different fun recipes, and you can certainly do bubbles in them, or do liquors in them, or make non-alcoholic versions.
That's right. I love
the
mocktails.
The mocktails
are big now.
Absolutely.
So I'm so excited to have them here.
I know.
Thank you so much.
So they're going to be available in the store starting this weekend, and we're excited to have them available for all of you and just tie in with our community and represent other things.
What a
Florida.
great little hostess gift too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Definitely a great little hostess
So,
gift.
yeah.
Well, we are excited that you guys joined us today. Thank you so much, Dannon. Thank you for.
Cheers.
I
Thank
know.
you so much
Cheers
for having me.
Definitely.
Yes, I appreciate it.
As always, this is our virtual wine tasting. We're going to be getting back to our in-store wine tasting, hopefully the first week of April. We're going to be monitoring things and certainly announce that over the next couple of broadcasts for you. But if you have time, certainly swing by the shop and pick up next week's wines. We'll have the Tortoise Creek Zinfandel and Cabernet Sauvignon available. And as always, we're live on Facebook every Thursday at 6 p.m. So thanks so much and have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.